So today is a very cozy day here in Seattle. I woke up this morning and it was just rainy and gray and a little bit cold, and I feel like this is the perfect weather to just stay in and do some art and do some drawing. So that's exactly what I want to do today. I thought it would be perfect to do a little drawing tutorial for you because I feel like it's been a long time since my last drawing video. I can't even remember what the last one was. But I want to do that for you. I want to show you how I draw some of my designs that you see in my shop and in the art that I make. I am going to do a little tutorial for you. So I am going to be doing this digitally because that's the way I have been working most often recently, but you can very easily do this by hand on paper with pencil or pen, whatever you want. So just choose the medium you want, but I am going to be doing these drawings digitally on my iPad. But let's go ahead and get started with this video. I made some coffee here. I am nice and cozy and I'm excited to start drawing. So as I said, I'm going to be doing digital drawing, so I'm using my iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil. I will have everything listed in the description box if you want to know the specifics of what all of this is and where you can find it. And I'll also link my iPad case and also this pencil sleeve if you're interested in that, but just wanted to let you know the tools that I'm using. So I like to begin with the center of the rose, and I kind of just start with some little blob shapes, and I will draw around the center. And then I like to go ahead and get the basic rose shape done. So I'm just going to draw a little round, I guess, arch down here, and this is going to be the bottom of my rose. So draw it however big you want it. Remember, we're just doing the sketch right now, and usually there's some leaves that are kind of bending outwards. So I'll just start drawing the edges of those. And from here you can just kind of layer in the petals until you like how it looks. So I have the very basic rose here. It's just the outlines, there's nothing fancy. Now I'm going to actually make this a little bit smaller because I realized I sketched it pretty large on this artboard. So I'm just going to shrink that a little bit. That's why I always start with a sketch and then I'll trace over this. Next, I'm going to add some leaves up by the flower. And then I'm going to work on drawing the stem. And the final thing that I'll add is another little stem with some leaves. And I usually like to do 2 or 3 leaves gathered together. And these ones are kind of jagged, so I just kind of add a little roughness to the edges. Now once I'm happy with the sketch, it's time to open a new layer, and we're going to outline this and do the final drawing. So I have made the new layer, and you can use whichever brush you want for your outlines. I think today I'm going to use the technical pen. I like this a lot if you want to get like a smooth, crisp line. So I'm going to do that. And for the outlines, for now, I'm just going to use this dark gray color. And let's see how big I want the pen. I like my outlines pretty thin, so I think I'm going to go with that line weight, and I'm just going to start tracing this sketch. So I have my outline done and it looks pretty good. I think the only thing now I'm going to add is I just want to go in and add a little bit of texture. So some lines here and there just to roughen it up a little bit and make it a little bit more dimensional. Alright, now it's time to add some color. So I'm going to open another new layer and I'm going to drag it underneath that outline. And to start out, just to put a wash of color down, I am going to use the dry ink brush. And let's make the rose just a classic pinkish red color. So now I have filled in the color and I want to add some shadows, some highlights, some texture, and make this stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to use my pencil brush again, and let's start with the rose petals. I want to first add some shadows. So I'm just going to use that same color but bring it a little bit darker and color in places where there would be shadows, like underneath where these petals fold over or in the center of the flower. Just add shadows where you think they would be. And now I want to go in and add some texture. So I'm going to go with just a slightly lighter color, but I kind of just want to go over and let me make this a little bit darker actually, but I kind of want to go over it and just sketch a little bit just so it looks more hand-drawn. This is just my personal preference, how I like my drawings to look. If you want it to be a perfectly smooth digital drawing, then you can skip this, but I just like adding some little pencil texture to this. Now I want to go in and add some highlights, so I'm just going to make this color a little bit brighter and place the highlights in areas where there would be a little bit of light, or just where the petals kind of fold out, like on the ends they might be lighter. I don't know, you can just find spots where a highlight would look good or just make the drawing stand out a little bit more. I'm not necessarily drawing this very true to life or with accurate lighting, because I'm not really paying attention to where my light source is coming from. When I'm doing these kinds of drawings in this style, I kind of just go with what looks best, even if it's not necessarily what would look realistic or accurate in real life. Another reason why I'm not necessarily concerned with making it look that great up close is because typically my designs end up being fairly small stickers. So I just need it to look good from far away, or if it's really small like this size, I add the highlights and the shadows so that the design will stand out. But of course, if you look up close, this doesn't look great, but it's never going to be viewed this large, you know? So just think about what your final design is going to be for, whether it's going to be an art print or a sticker, or how big it's going to be, how small, and use that to determine how much detail you need to add or how accurate you need to be with the colors. So here's the finished rose. Remember, you can customize this by using any of the brushes that you like or any other colors. I just wanted to give you a general idea of how to sketch a rose. So now let's move on to the next drawing. Next, I want to show you how I sketch hands, because it seems like a lot of people have trouble with drawing hands, and I know they can be tricky. I have trouble myself sometimes. So let me show you how I do it. I have gone ahead and just hidden the layers of the rose, and I'm going to start fresh on a new layer, and I'm going to start sketching with that pencil brush and a bright red once again, just for the beginning sketch. Now, when I'm drawing hands, I like to actually look at my own hand and follow that to draw. So, for example, if I want to draw a hand that's holding something, I will grab a pen. So I hold the pen and kind of find the position that I want to sketch. So if I want to draw a hand holding flowers, this is usually the process I go through, and I just kind of hold it there and do the rough sketch. So this looks pretty good to me from my angle, so let me go ahead and start sketching. Now the trick to drawing an accurate and proportionate hand, or really anything you're drawing from real life, is to not look at it as the object that you're drawing, because if you look at this as a hand, then you're going to start drawing what your brain kind of just thinks would look like a hand, if that makes sense, instead of drawing how it actually looks in real life. So try to look at your hand or whatever object you're drawing and just draw the shapes and the outlines, and don't think about it as I'm drawing a hand. Think of just copying the shapes and the lines that you see in front of you. So obviously I have a very rough sketch here. So what I'm going to do is just go in and clean it up a little bit before I start outlining, just because it's going to be really hard to figure out which lines to outline here since it's so messy. So let me clean this up. Alright, so here is the rough sketch of the hand, and I know it's not perfect, it's not perfectly proportional, but you guys know my style of art is very imperfect. I don't mind things looking hand-drawn and imperfect in certain ways, so I'm just going to stick with this. And I am going to make this a bit smaller because I don't need it to be so large. And I'm going to go ahead and open a new layer. And let's do the outline with that same technical pen and this dark gray. So here is my outline. It's not perfect, like I said, but it looks okay. So now I'm just going to go in and start adding some color, and I'm going to add a new layer underneath that outline. And just like with the last drawing, I'm going to start by using the dry ink brush just to add a base color. I think for my hand I'm actually going to make it a blue color. I kind of like when I draw hands to make them weird non-skin colors. So I have the base color down, and I am going to go back to my 6B pencil and add some texture and some shadows to this. So this is how I do my hand drawings. I could spend a lot more time going in and cleaning this up and making it perfect, but I don't want to spend too long because I want to move on with this tutorial. But you get the general idea of how to do this, so you can draw your own hand holding a little flower bouquet. So the next little doodle that I want to show you is a really simple one that is just fun to draw anywhere you want, in your journal, on your planner, whatever, but it's a little envelope with some flowers, and I just think it's so cute, so I'm going to show you how I do this. You start with just a rectangle. Now you can just freehand the rectangle. Obviously this one's not that great, so what I'm actually going to do is just clear this, and let's use the drawing guide And this will just help us to draw a perfect rectangle. So there we go. And I'm just gonna close that drawing guide. And I'm actually going to just make this a tiny bit bigger so it's easier for you guys to see. Now just draw the envelope shape. So I like to start with the flap and then these two lines to show how it folds together. Now here's a basic envelope. I'm sure you can already figure out how to draw that on your own, but we're gonna add some flowers. So that's it, it's super simple. Now we are gonna go in and trace this. All right, so now we have this outline of a very cute, simple drawing, and I'm gonna open a new layer and add some color to this. Now that I have some color on here, I'm going to use my pencil brush and add some texture and some shadows. So this is how you do a quick and easy little floral envelope doodle. It's simple, but it looks really cute. And finally, the last drawing that I want to show you how to do is a cute floral frame. And I actually included this sketch in my latest Patreon printable that I posted this month. I actually create new printables every single month on Patreon, so you can check that out if you're interested. My Patreon is always linked down below. But let's start with this sketch. So I'm going to open the drawing guide and do first just a basic rectangle. So here's my basic frame shape, and actually I think I need this to be a little bit longer. So you see all these rectangles that I ended up copying and pasting. I'm just going to merge all these together so they're on the same layer. And you can select that there, and I'm actually just going to drag it just a bit. I want it a tiny bit longer. Now we're going to start adding the flower shapes because I want this to look like a vintage floral frame. And I'm just going to start in this corner. And I'm going to make a really simplified flower shape. It doesn't need to be perfect because it's just supposed to look like an engraving on the frame, not a real flower. Then I'm going to do a little stem, and I want to add some leaves as a border on this frame. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And I'll just erase the lines in these leaves so we don't get confused. I think that looks good. And then I'm just gonna add some detail to the leaves. So now I need this floral shape on all the corners. And instead of redrawing it on each corner, I'm just gonna make it easy on myself and copy and paste it. So I'm just going to select this whole shape and then drag with 3 fingers and copy. Then I'm going to open a new layer, drag 3 fingers again, paste, and then we have this here. So I'm just going to flip this upside down and place it on this top corner. And then let's open another layer, paste again. We'll bring it over here and flip it horizontal. And then one more layer. And this one will be flipped both ways. So that looks pretty good. I kept them all on separate layers, that way I can move them around if they need to be moved, but that looks pretty good. Now on my original floral frame that I did, that was on my Patreon printable, I also had a little flower in the center here, but I've drawn this one a little bit differently than that. You can take a look at that if you want to copy that specific image, but this looks good too. So I'm just going to add a few more details. I want to, actually first let's merge all these and then finish our sketch. I'm going to add just some lines here. All right, this looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and close my drawing guide because I don't need that anymore. And I like how this looks, so I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to start on my outline once again with the technical pen and a dark gray color. So I have this outline finished. Now it's time to add the color. So new layer, I'm going to use my dry ink brush, and I think I'm going to make it the same color that I made the original that I showed you. So this pretty light pink color. So now that I have the base color in, I am going to do the same thing that I have been doing and add my shadows. So I am just going to take a darker pink color, and I'm going to start by actually let's go darker than that. I'm going to go around these flower shapes to give them some shadow, since it's supposed to look like an engraving, like I said, so it would be kind of raised a little bit, you know, and have some shadow on it. So let's do that. So now that I have the shadows in, I'm going to do the highlights, and I'm just going to add them to a few spots. I'm not going to make this super highlighted, but I do want it to have a little bit more dimension. And finally, I'm just sketching a little bit to add some more texture to this. That's basically how I did that frame drawing, and I think it looks really cute. It would be fun to do this and cut it out if you need a little frame for something in your bullet journal or whatever you're making, but that's how I do the floral frame.